Hey everyone, it's Jack from CutlerHug.com outside the wonderful Tokyo Dome after a very long, very grueling, but very excellent show as well. Wrestle Kingdom 13, nearly forgot the name of it. Wrestle Kingdom 13 was, I think, pretty strong throughout. We've had a little look online at some of the reception, and Richard was saying that a lot of people thought, the last few matches certainly delivered, but the rest of the card was a bit inconsistent. I think there live, it was pretty enjoyable all the way through, and for New Japan to put on a show of such length and with such long matches, and for it to stay constantly engaging to a live audience throughout as well, and that was a pretty impressive feat. So anyway, without any further ado, let's take a look at what happened at New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Kingdom 13. So the pre-show match was that sort of trios team scramble gauntlet kind of thing to become number one contender for the trios belts, the never open weight 6-man title. This was an okay sort of opener. I guess it was fun, and that's all you really want in a show opener. The match was really about two people. Jeff Cobb looked like the star of the match, was slamming folks left, right and centre, looking like a big powerful unit, and I believe as well that he was actually the last minute replacement for Michael Elgin, who of course was injured or missed the show to undergo surgery. So it was impressive for Jeff Cobb to step into the limelight like that and really shine. Also, Toru Yano, who picked up the win for his team, low-blowing the Killer Elite squad and rolling one of them up to pick up the 3 count. I think that maybe I would have liked to have seen Chaos win, and then that could further the whole Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta storyline. Maybe something will happen tomorrow with Chuckie T acting a bit weird and heelish, but on the whole, that was a fun opener. Nothing spectacular, of course, but you don't really expect that from the pre-show. So got the crowd off to a nice hot little start, and then we moved on to the serious business. So first up was pretty much the definition of a hot opener. Will Ospreay against the never openweight champion Kota Ibushi. This match was pretty full throttle. Both guys really went for each other, and it made Ospreay look so very strong. He hit Kota Ibushi with some pretty stiff shots, which were returned, of course, but I was surprised just how much Kota Ibushi was willing to go to make Ospreay look like an absolute killer, and certainly I think it won't be long before he makes the full transition to the heavyweight division. At the minute now, of course, he's the new openweight champion, having won the match. It was pretty brutal. I believe Ibushi was busted open at one point as well. Ospreay hit that sick back elbow, all of his usual spots. I remember one big moment being where Ospreay flipped out of a German suplex attempt, landed on his feet, and then they did the whole callback to the tag match recently where Ospreay was stood behind Ibushi. Ibushi knew that he'd landed on his feet, but he didn't want to turn around, couldn't quite believe it. Then when he did, Ospreay just nailed him with a flying kick. That might have been what busted his face open, actually. Ospreay won with the Stormbreaker, his new, power finisher, and I found it a bit confusing. There was a bit of confusion over whether Ibushi was legitimately injured or not, as Sam drops his food in the background. Hope the audio picked that up. But I think that we assume, I suppose, that it's a work. If it's not, obviously we wish Ibushi a full and fast recovery, but maybe it was to make Ospreay look like a bit of a killer. His reaction after the match also was a little bit muted. Yes, he celebrated all proud with the belt, but at the same time, he wasn't, going crazy in babyface fashion. It was more stern-faced. Yes, I've done it. I'm the champion. Could this be the beginning of maybe a heel turn for Ospreay? Or could it just be that maybe Ibushi really was injured and that Ospreay was upset with himself? I don't know. I really don't know, but Ibushi did the stretcher job to the back, and it made Ospreay look strong as hell. It was a surprising one for sure. Maybe not the result if you predicted that Ospreay would win, but certainly the manner in which he did so. Next up, the 3-team match for the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships between the champions, Suzuki-gun, represented by Kanemaru and Desperado in this instance, Roppongi 3K, Sho and Yo, and the LIJ team of Bushi and their newest recruit, Shingo Takagi. This match was all about Shingo Takagi, basically. It was a little bit of a downturn from, after such a hot opener. I thought that was always going to be the risk, putting Ibushi Ospreay at the top of the show. It kind of meant that the next match was always going to, I guess, be in front of a slightly burnt out crowd. Not burnt out, that's the wrong word, but a crowd who'd already seen an excellent match straight off the bat. And this one, it's a bit unfair to expect it to match up to it. It was still entertaining for what it was, though, and it worked really well as a vehicle to get Shingo over as a major threat. You could tell physically he was bigger than everyone else in the match. He was bowling guys over with clotheslines and lariats and that sort of thing, and he looked really dominating. It was him. It was he who picked up the victory, pinning one of Roppongi 3K. I can't quite remember which one, but yeah, he looked like a unit. Suzuki-gun tried to cheat, as we knew they would, but I think Kanemaru got hit as he was about to spit the whiskey into his opponent's face. It all went up in the air, and LIJ picked up the victory. The beginning of what would be a very, very impressive night for Los Ingobernables de Japón. Next up, the match for the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship. The new title belt itself. They had a new physical belt there. It was nice to see Chris Roberts, one of the major referees over in the UK, flown over to Japan to ref this match. It was obviously Tomohiro Ishii, the reigning champion, against Zack Sabre Jr. This match, from what we've seen online, had a bit more of a mixed reception, not in terms of good or bad, but in terms of good or very good. Live, I can report, I'm happy to say, that it was received very, very well. It was awesome. And with Zack Sabre Jr.'s style, often it can run the risk of maybe falling a little flat with a live crowd, because obviously he can be very methodical, technical based. He's not doing big flips off the top rope or anything, but this match was awesome. Ishii can sell his arse off when he wants to. Yes, he's the Stone Pitbull, he's really hard, but at the same time, when he's vulnerable, he really shows it. Zack Sabre Jr. worked the limbs like really, really aggressively and savagely in this match. He was a bit of a dick heel. Taka Michinoku was with him, of course. They cut a heel promo before the match. Don't have a clue what he was saying, but it got heat from the crowd, so that's fair enough. And yes, eventually, Zack Sabre Jr. picked up the victory. Not just a pinfall one either, a submission victory over Ishii. It was more, I guess, it wasn't so much the effectiveness of this one submission hold, even though it was a particularly devilish looking hold. It was more, I think, an accumulation of the damage he'd done to Ishii over the course of the match. It wasn't a submission hold, but the thing I remember the most from this match was the penalty kick from Zack Sabre Jr., which we were sat, there's a fair distance between our seats in the ring, and when he kicked him, it thudded throughout the Tokyo Dome. It was amazing. The crowd were hot for it. It was a really well done match. The pair have certainly got a good chemistry, and I'm excited to see what they do with Zack Sabre Jr. next. He's had one hell of a sort of 12 months or so. Next up, another 3-team match, this time for the heavyweight tag belts between the reigning champions, the Guerrillas of Destiny, who had a really cool entrance, my personal favourite entrance of the night, I think. They were in masks and stuff, they were dancing about as they do. New entrance music as well, went down well, pretty good stuff. Our boy Tamatonga, what a lad, what a great guy. They were facing another LIJ squad. This was Sonata and Evil, and also the Young Bucks, who were somewhat controversially inserted into the match despite not winning the World Tag League. They just had a rematch clause, which they sort of went, let's get involved as well, and then, that's how they found their place on the card. Not many people liked it on Twitter, or certainly there were some vocal opponents to it, I guess, but the match itself turned out to be a pretty fun one. I think it was probably a bit better than the junior heavyweight tag match, just by virtue of, I guess, Sonata's overness, really. The crowd absolutely loved Sonata. He was very much riding a wave of momentum midway through this match. There was a hilarious sort of sequence of reversals, people jumping in and out of the ring. Eventually Sonata managed to get the upper hand, and we had the first chant of the night, I think, which was a big thunderous Sonata chant. Chants are a bit more rare at Japanese shows from what we've seen, but that doesn't mean that the crowd are in any way less passionate. They just sort of express that in different ways. It was LIJ picking up another victory as well. Richard mentioned next to me at the time that this could be the start of a big 2019 for LIJ, them getting back on top, I suppose. And I think it was Sonata who picked up the pinfall, yes it was, with the moonsault on one of the Young Bucks. Interestingly, well, also I should mention as well, the Bad Luck Fale and Jado tried to get involved, but they were foiled by the Bucks, who then were taken advantage of, I guess, by LIJ. But yes, I should mention that the Bucks didn't really get as big a send-off as I imagined they would. I thought, yeah, they'd probably take the pinfall, given that they're leaving soon for All Elite Wrestling. But at the same time, I wasn't totally certain. I wasn't totally convinced by their exit. I think we might see something else go down tomorrow at New Year's Dash. Next up, we had the US title match between the defending champion Cody, accompanied of course by Brandy, his wife, against Juice Robinson, the man he took the title from, and the man he beat 2 years ago in his New Japan debut, also at Wrestle Kingdom. The story of this match in the early going was very much Cody and Brandy being the old school heel babyface couple, bending the rules. Brandy would lie across Cody to protect him from a high flying move from Juice, for example. They'd distract the referee, or one of them would, and then the other one would get involved. This all culminated when Cody distracted the ref. Brandy ran in, hit a spear on Juice, which he sold wonderfully, got on top of him, started beating him down. The referee, who I think was Tiger Hattori for this match, turned around and was like, what are you doing? You've got to get out. Sadly, he didn't do the big American wind-up, like, you're out of here kind of thing. He just went, get to the back, what are you doing? She went off. As she was leaving, Cody used that distraction to his advantage, hitting the crossroads, but it wasn't enough to get the 3 count. Both guys utilised each other's finishes on each other. Juice hit the crossroads, Cody hit an unprettier, but eventually it was Juice who gained the victory, regaining the US title with 2 unprettiers. And it wasn't a case of there's one, Cody's kicked out, there's another one. It was more, there's one, and this is a bit of revenge as well for you getting the best of me, I suppose, over the past couple of years. He hit another one, and it was a nice big climactic babyface victory for Juice Robinson. Next up, the junior heavyweight title match between the champion Kushida and his challenger Taiji Ishimori of course, the Bullet Club OGs. This match was, I think, a little bit slower paced than I expected. I thought both guys might go a bit frantic, as you would see maybe if one of them was facing Hiromu Takahashi, who I'm sad that we didn't see tonight, actually. I thought that at some point Takahashi would come out like Shibata did last year, but instead we had no sign of Takahashi, really, which, you know, is totally understandable given his injury woes as of late. But also, this match, yeah, it was wrestled at a bit of a slower pace than I imagined it would be, but it really felt like a grower. It felt like this match really built and improved as it went on. Both guys are obviously really quick, really slick as well. I think Kushida's one of the best all-rounders in all of wrestling, really. He was working submissions, he was doing a bit of high-flying stuff. I think there were a few strikes here and there as well. Essentially, Taiji Ishimori got the win after escaping from a really convincing hoverboard lock. It looked for a moment as though he was going to tap out, but he managed to make it to the ropes despite multiple attempts from Kushida to roll him back into the middle of the ring. Then Kushida managed to hit the Back to the Future, and instead of going for the pinfall, he went for a second. Ishimori was able to reverse it, hit his own finisher, and almost, I guess, a case of Kushida trying to do too much in that way. That helped Taiji Ishimori pick up the victory. Not that it was a lucky victory by any stretch of the imagination. He looks very strong in winning this title. But yeah, it was one of those ones where, given how strong Shingo looked in the earlier match, I thought he was going to be built up as a competitor, a heel opposite Kushida's babyface. But, you know, I can see Shingo versus Taiji as well. Either way, good match. Not the best on the show, but certainly not the worst either. Next up, possibly the most over man in the building for the entire show, Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, versus Switchblade Jay White, the new leader of the Bullet Club. And for much of this match, it almost felt, I guess, like a foregone conclusion that Okada would win. From the moment he made it into the ring, pulled off his, you know, entrance attire, and he was wearing the old Okada, the short tights, rather than the more sort of longer, baggier ones that he's had recently. The crowd popped for the reveal of the shorts, which was hilarious, and I think goes to show just how much of a little legacy Okada's already built for himself in just such a short space of time, just a few years. Yeah, everyone loved the fact that he had the shorts back. He seemed like the old Okada. There was none of this franticness. He was full, confident Okada once again, something that he'd lost since losing his title to Kenny Omega, of course, back at Dominion. But yes, in this match, the first half felt almost like a bit of a fun match, like not too serious in a weird way, with Jay White beating down Okada, and then once Okada made his comeback, it just seemed like he was obviously going to win. Gato tried to get involved, the recently turned heel Gato, but Okada was having none of it, did a nice crossbody over the crowd barrier onto both men, and it just looked like he was going to not steamroll his way to victory, but pick up a pretty convincing win. Instead, Okada, I think the finish came somewhere where like Okada went for the Rainmaker, and it was just, I can't remember exactly what move it was, but basically Jay White instinctively quickly countered something straight into his finisher, and it was, you know, not a flash pinfall, but it was more, because Okada kicks out finishes all day, but this was like he's been taken by surprise and just totally gone 3 count. Jay White picks up the biggest win of his career, easily. Also, I'm very pleased to report that this match was in a different league entirely to the little disappointing one that we had last year, Jay White versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. This one, I think, was a lot better. Really helped cement Jay White as a future top-level star in New Japan as well. I'm absolutely delighted for him. And I'm also intrigued to see where Okada goes from here. Maybe his slide is going to continue. Next up, the penultimate match of the evening, the IC title match between Tetsuya Naito and the champion, the scarcely seen Chris Jericho. This match was announced as no DQ only yesterday, I believe. It was a late addition to the match, but it wasn't too much of a surprising one given Jericho's style. Since moving to New Japan, he's obviously been a lot more of a brawler than we're perhaps used to seeing Chris Jericho be. It was a good match and a very fun match and a bit of a wild one as well. I don't know if it was quite as good as his match with Kenny Omega at last year's Wrestle Kingdom, but it was certainly in the same ballpark. It was still a very entertaining match. It was nice to see Naito jump Y2J before the bell, mimicking what Y2J's been doing to Naito and other opponents in the build-up. And immediately, within about a minute or two of the match beginning, Naito hit a pile driver on the entrance ramp, and that very much set the tone. This was dangerous, it felt wild. I remember one spot where I think Jericho hit a DDT on the commentary table, and Naito just sold it like death. He sort of planked in the air vertically. It was quite something. It looked nasty. Jericho at one point commandeered a ringside camera, was doing all this heelish stuff. He rang the bell and announced himself the winner ahead of time and that sort of thing. But eventually they started hitting each other with their bigger moves, their finishers, kicking out of each other's finishers as well. Naito resorted to a code breaker at one point, but eventually it was Naito who picked up the victory. And it was a really nice little bit of storytelling, actually. He got the IC title involved, the belt that he has disrespected so much over the past couple of years, and nailed Chris Jericho with it, hurled it out of the ring, and hit a final climactic Destino to pick up the victory. And then we saw a shade of the old, more straightforward heelish Naito, leaving the belt behind, forcing the ref to come and give it to him, attacking Red Shoes as well, just for a laugh. He just wanted to. And it seems like the opposite of the Okada situation, whereas Okada has lost something. Feels like Naito's really got his mojo back with this victory. He's the old confident, swaggering Tetsuya Naito once again. And from there, all that was left was a long and epic main event, which I personally think was the match of the night. And that main event was, of course, Kenny Omega, the reigning and defending IWGP Heavyweight Champion, against the winner of the G1 Climax from last year, Hiroshi Tanahashi, who, as it turns out, is every bit as mega over a babyface as we've all been led to imagine. I can report that, seeing it live, everybody loves Tanahashi. Although in our section, quite a few Westerners about who all wanted Omega to win. Personally, I wanted Omega to win, not just for the predictions contest, I just thought it would have been better that way, but this match was so good that you can't really factor the result into it. It was awesome either way, the storytelling was great, and no matter who won, there's various different storytelling options for them to go in the future, so I have no complaints there at all. The match itself, I mean, Melter's going to give it probably 6 stars. That's my prediction anyway. I thought it was excellent. The match of the night, an early match of the year contender for certain, and it just proves that Tanahashi seems aged. He can still really go. There was a lot of brutal leg work from Tanahashi in the early going. There was a few nasty sort of dragon screws, one off the turnbuckle at some point as well, a little bit later on, which really legitimately bent Omega's leg and looked really horrible. One of the key moments came when Tanahashi laid Omega on a table outside the ring, went for a high fly flow to the outside, Omega rolled out the way, crashed and burned through the table. It looked brutal. Neither man went easy in this match. Both were going hell for leather. Of course they are. It's the Wrestle Kingdom main event. Kenny Omega later on suffered a Styles clash, which the crowd popped huge for. Tanahashi resorting to a move used by a former leader of the Bullet Club. That's so out of character for him and really got across how desperate he was to win that title back. Later on, another moment that really elevated the match. This match was built around several moments that took it to the next level and the next level, and it just kept going and going. Was when Kenny Omega stole the high fly flow, hit it himself, and then covered Tanahashi, who kicked out at 1, and again the crowd came unstuck. I normally would think that's a bit of a silly sort of part to have in a match of this gravitas, but it really worked to perfection here. It was timed excellently, and it just ramped up the tension even further. Later on, Tanahashi hit 2 high fly flows, one on Kenny when he was standing, another one on Kenny when he was prone. Kenny kicked out, and it looked as though he was going to pick up the victory, but then, finally, when he went for the one-winged angel, it was reversed by Tanahashi, who then hit the sling blade, the high fly flow. It was a deceptively, I suppose, straightforward finish to the match, but that really fits Tanahashi's style. He's got one of the best fundamental games in all of wrestling ever. There's a reason he's been on top for so long, and he won. And the pop was huge, even from people like myself who would have preferred it if Omega won. It still felt like a real moment, and maybe Tanahashi's last great run with the title. I should assume so anyway. Key things to take away from that for me are what's going to happen with Kenny Omega next. Where will he go? Will he go to AEW? Will he stay with New Japan? They've done a really good job keeping it under wraps. It's been really cool, and I can't wait to see where it goes. But I think also it's important to really recognise what Tanahashi did here. It was an awesome moment, and even though I didn't understand a word of his promo afterwards, you could tell the emotion was real in his voice. He was almost on the verge of tears, and then he played the air guitar, which kind of... I hate that. It's not even accurate. It's not even good air guitaring. Anyway, there's nothing left to do but sign off. Thank you very much for watching. This was what happened at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 13. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to at Jack the Jobber. All of us generally at Cultaholic. And check out our Patreon if you want to as well. Patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, if you haven't done so already, to smash that subscribe button and to join us.